a consultant on the project and you all are bickering back and forth. You do it, no, no, no! Girl, what do you think? I don't know, whatever you think. And then 40-hour engagement turned to 80 hours. 80 hours turned to, okay, you got it. All right, let's see if since I've been running off at the mouth, let's see if this guy's ready. Oh, this is part of my demonstration. So let's do it this way. Always a way around. So let's run this as an admin. So let's use, let's say, best practices. I think that's good, right? Yep. Okay, give it a chance to open that. We'll come back. Always keep your slide handy. So let's go from this current slide, moving right along. Don't you love it when it takes its time? Excited about SharePoint I am. You can vote for me on American Idol. He's the worst. Give him a contract. All right, so one of the other features that I want to go ahead and mention is the actual content deployment. This is actually configured by your administrators, SharePoint Form administrators. It's their job. You provide them with the requirements. They set up these content deployment strategies where you can actually go in. Let me come out of this virtual environment and let's jump into this guy. Let's log in. And you can see I'm using all security strategies. Right, if you're going for such a time, please turn on your screensaver. This guy come up. And right now I'm on the actual launch server. So I'm wearing my SharePoint Form Administrator's hat. And so my job is to configure the content deployment features. Right? They have a graphical user interface, right? Here we are, content deployment. I have to go in and configure the settings, meaning I have to authorize or allow the movement of content. You can actually do this in one web app. Move content from one site collection to the other. You can do it in between forms, between web apps. So Microsoft took the content migration server, or CMS server, and pull those features into SharePoint. So just to demonstrate, just to show you my content deployment path, meaning I identify the source, web app, and site collection, and I identify the destination, web app, and site collection. Because we need to take advantage of this automated process to move content. And so when we talk about content, again, we're talking about the master pages that I manipulate with SharePoint Designer. We're talking about these cascading style sheets and any content that content owners put on the pages. Right? We can either have security descriptors copied out. But my goal is to take advantage of a read-only production environment, right? In this particular case, I'm targeting customers, right? I want them to consume the information. Once you start leveraging the publishing features, it's for consuming content, not collaboration. Consuming. We just want to read when I'm a customer. So as you can see here, I've identified a path from the mirror environment over to my portal. And again, how much coding did I have to do to take advantage of this particular configuration? As you can see right now, what is it doing? You can configure it to run every 5 minutes if you want to. Well, 30 minutes. You can configure it to run once. You can configure it to run nightly at 12 midnight, 3 a.m. to ensure that any changes, only changes, if you wanted to, is moved from my authoring environment, right? Because it went through a formalized approval process over here. It was signed off by the content managers. Midnight, anything that's been approved, copy. Yes, it's a redundant copy. Right, so you can take a look at my actual configuration, right? In this particular case, I want to copy the entire site collection. But if I wanted to, let's say if it was the news, I just wanted to have a read-only news location, I could configure that. Yes, sir?
to configure this to run every 5 minutes or 10 minutes, do you lose performance? Does it impact your performance?
It all depends on the, oh, I'm sorry, repeat the question. Correct, I understand that SharePoint Designer is the greatest tool known to man. But if I were to configure the content deployment to deploy my updates pretty frequently, would I take a performance hit? It all depends on your infrastructure. And I would have to just automatically say yes. Right? Because again, you're going to have it checking in, and of course, you may not be making changes that often.
So as a follow-up, what is the best, what's the best recommendation to set?
Well, my best practice is to, of course, number one, you want to make sure it's a business requirement. Number two, you want to make sure you work with your infrastructure people so that you can know more about the supporting infrastructure. If I have a utilization rate of 80% on the infrastructure, and I'm not leaning towards such frequent updates. Right? But again, business requirement is going to be your chief. Your governing driving force. Thank you.
So space is an issue as well.
Of course, because it takes that content and it places it in a temporary directory. And so you have to make sure, and thanks for bringing that up. Whenever you're working with content deployment, it places this content in a temporary directory. So number one, if you don't have the appropriate permissions, you're going to run into some unpredictable issues. Number two, if you run out of space, you're going to run into some unpredictable issues. A lot of these error messages are not that friendly. How many already know that? Okay, good. So I'm preaching to the choir. Great point. Great question.
Well, how did you determine that you're only going to deploy the content that's approved?
Well, because that's a good question. The question is, how do I determine that the only content that's copied is the one that's approved? Well, I take that back. Let me answer your question and I'll show you. Whenever you set up content deployment, it actually takes the major version and a couple of the draft versions and copy them into the destination. And I forgot the exact number, but I want to say the last 3 drafts. Maybe inserting foot, but I know it's at least 3 minor drafts. What does that mean? Honestly, I'm not concerned with that because whoever's consuming the information, they will only see the major published pages, even though it does copy the drafts. Also, as a part of the content deployment, any dependencies, like images, is also copied into the actual destination web application.
There's a new tool that's available on CodePage called the Deployment Wizard, which is pretty useful. It allows you to package up your masterpages and pagelayouts and that. But also there's issues if you're going from one site collection to the same site collection, the same content database. You can use that Deployment Wizard to rebuild the GUIDs so it can actually do that with only parts.
Everybody, the response here is in reference to CodePlex. What's the name of the tool again?
So Content Deployment Wizard. Content
Deployment Wizard. I haven't worked with that personally myself because many of my customers didn't want to. They consider it not well-tested solutions. I differ, but I had worked with it, so I can't speak to it. But just take a look at it. Honestly, what I see here, and especially if you deploy Service Pack 1 or your SharePoint Form Administrator, there has been some serious updates that fixed a lot of issues with content deployment. Like say, for example, if I try to do an update, you'll get an error message on report site. The report site already exists, but there hadn't been any updates, as if it was doing an overwrite of the entire site. Right, so you can take a look at that. So let me go to the job quickly. What time does my session end? Somebody said 5 o'clock? Wow, I've been talking that long? Okay, let's move right along. So let's just look at the job quickly. Look, see my job? So this is a true reflection of what happens in production sometimes. All right, so don't worry about it. So what I want to do is, let me jump back to the slides, because I got to get to some of the actual content. Some things that I want to make sure you all get a chance to look at. Let's go back into this guy, and let's kick this off.